Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Thomas Frost with Frost & Frost Wealth Management with your weekly market and economic update for the week of May the 11th, 2020. And as of today, we are officially one day closer to this whole thing being behind us. Please make sure that you read the disclosures that were attached to the email that sent this video out. So this week, we're going to be looking at the fourth of the 5 signals that we're monitoring in determining economic progress during this COVID-19 virus. Now, so far, we've discussed the timing of a peak in the virus, which we needed to see, and I think we feel that we've seen that. We also talked about the probability and the severity of a recession, and I think most of us now recognize how severe this recession really will be. We've lost over 20 million jobs since this whole thing began. It's just hard to even wrap our brains around that number. We also talked about whether the market's adequately priced in a recession, and we think that it did with the deep sell-off that we saw back in March. Now, this week, we're going to be using research and technical analysis to learn if most of the sellers are now out of the market or if we should be expecting future sell-offs and more intense volatility. Now, two of the sources that we go to for this type of information are investor surveys and technical indicators. We often use the CNN Fear and Greed survey, as well as the American Association of Individual Investors, which have shown us some of the worst readings that we've ever seen in history during this recession. A historically high number of stocks have been oversold as a result of this negative sentiment. Now, this could indicate that we're seeing a bullish combination of mass selling and negative sentiment. We really need to see that in order for the sellers to be out. That data may indicate that some of the worst sell-offs are behind us, we hope, and equities are continuing to rise. Last week, the S&P 500 climbed higher and cut year-to-date losses to now being just under 10%. The COVID-19 recession is a very unique recession. We've seen the markets cram an entire recession's worth of damage into just a few short months. This has caused the markets to plunge, the leading economic indicators to falter. It's just like someone literally stepped in and flipped the light switch off. What we're seeing is an indication that sellers may be done or at least close to being done in their market exit. Now, the good news is we're getting closer to flipping that light switch back on again. However, we need to remain cautious because investors may be attaching too much weight to the stock market's positive return of late. While extreme negativity can cause a massive sell-off, as we've seen, excessive optimism may not last. We may see another sell-off at some point this year, but for now, we believe it's a good thing that we've regained some of those market losses to the extent that it would soften the blow if the market should drop drastically in the future. We're also keeping in mind the fact that stocks tend to weaken before the economy falters, and they tend to strengthen before the economy turns around. You see, stocks see the light at the end of the tunnel before the economy feels it. And the big move recently may be a sign that the economy could turn around later this fall. We aren't out of the woods yet, and the economic data and the headlines may get worse before they get better, but our response to this crisis reinforces our confidence that the future does remain bright. And on a side note, I talked to a client last week whose grandmother was just 17 years old when the Spanish influenza occurred, and she lived through it, and she lived through 2 world wars, and she lived until the ripe old age of 98 years old. And it was just a good reminder that we've gone through some huge events in the history of this country, and America has recovered. And that's what we feel will happen this time as well. We're here if you need us. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And please stay safe and have a wonderful day. Bye now.